Welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather Show. Coming at you once again with the world's most comprehensive daily space weather and solar imagery. That's a 24-hour video. We'll get back to solar imagery here in a moment. We've got a new active region rising and some Earth-directed CMEs. You gotta love those. We've also got a new map for the Grindavik volcanic zones. You can check that out at volcanodiscovery.com if you want to. Several million cubic meters, like 7 million cubic meters of lava have gathered under the town part of it, and so a crazy hazard map going on there at the Reykjanes Peninsula. These are the other quakes and volcanoes that are occurring. So the alert level has not been lowered. There is an imminent eruption likely at Grindavik. The Reykjanes Peninsula, folks. Iceland is about to be back in the news with a bunch of lava blasting out of the ground. Also Suonosejima, Luatolo, 15,000 footer over Semaru, Dacono, 8,000 foot ash plume there. Uptick at Popocatépetl there, a 24,000 foot ash plume there over central Mexico. Flight level 240 from Popocatépetl. Big right up there on it. Also Santiaguito producing a 10,500 foot ash plume. Fuego, Nevado del Ruiz, Revenador, and Sabancaya all also erupting. There's the 90-day bar graph of earthquakes. 7 magnitude earthquake drought continues, folks, and there is an earthquake risk for the western portion of North America. We keep seeing quakes there, but no big ones. So some of these areas seem very much overdue for a large quake. Here we can see a series of quakes happening about 180 miles off the coast of Eureka. And some of those are nearly a 5 magnitude there. So one of them is a 4.9, I think. This one here, is it? So some considerable quakes there. And remember, folks, any quake can be a foreshock. Even a sizable quake can be a foreshock. That's the scariest thing of all. So, but I digress. So these are the quakes of a 5 and greater magnitude. Philippines had 2 this morning. And what else you got? Zemlya. Where the heck is Zemlya? What? Where? Oh, way up there at the North Pole, folks. Like at the North Geographic Pole. Look at how far north it is. It doesn't want to appear at the map. It's like at the Geographic North Pole. That is freaking weird. Check that one out. It's right on the edge of the map. Nice. It's at like 91 degrees east by 85 degrees north. Yowzers! That's Berserk. Not a normal place for a 5 magnitude earthquake. All right. Alaska had a 5.0. Japan had a 5.1. Solomon Islands had a 5.0. Indonesia had a 5.0. Japan had a 5.0. And the 7 magnitude earthquake drought continues, folks. And can anybody leave us a comment and let us know what 7 magnitude earthquake droughts end in? All right, so let's cut back to some solar imagery. There you go. SDO 171 angstroms. Just a classic wavelength. And again, new sunspot region likely rising down there in the southeast. So we have multiple locations where we have some flare risk. The highest flare risk remains in the northwest, the upper right of your screen, sunspot 3590. And once again, we've got some epic close-ups of that. Yes. And we'll get back to that other stuff here in a moment. First, the radio flux is down to 163, I think it is now. 163 solar flux units for the radio flux. There it is in the black line. That's the 1-year chart of the radio flux, the black line. Below it is the red line, the sunspot number, a proportional data set. 164 is the radio flux number. And NOAA's not forecasting any geomagnetic storms. It's pretty calm at the moment here, the past 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space. Space, a frontier. These are the voyages of the last 4 hours of Earth's solar system voyage. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. If you don't know what it is, leave us a comment. If you know, you know. So that's what's going on. It is geomagnetically calm. KP index is at 0.67, as you can see here on this convenient bar graph of the past 3 days. The KP index is an average of Earth's global geomagnetism. Solar wind is next, and it's pretty slow and pretty diffuse at the ACE. The ACE showing about 2 protons per cubic centimeter and about 390 kilometers per second. The Discover, pretty similar. Only 2 protons per cubic centimeter and 405 kilometers per second. It's a very, very calm solar wind at the moment. Any signals coming in should be obvious. Next, we've got our GOES magnetometers. And there are the past 3 days of magnetic field measurements from the GOES 16 and GOES 18. They orbit at a geosynchronous near equatorial orbit. They're at like 23,500 miles of altitude in the outer portion of Earth's outer Van Allen belts. Next, our heliospheric magnetism. Earth is kind of right in the middle of a North Pole magnetic sector. Expect that to remain for at least the next 24 hours, probably a little bit longer than that. There's our line of sight field plot. And if you had to look at just one piece of data for the past 4 days, folks, that tells you a lot about what's going on with the closest star. Once again, if you know, you know. Magnetic fields. Cheers. Coronal holes are next. And let's, instead of looking at that, let's look at this. There's SDO 211 angstroms, and the coronal hole situation is pretty mild at the moment. Do we have any rotating in? Well, we've got some South Pole ones rotating in here from the east. As you can see there. Again, that's the last 4 days. Let's bring up the last image. There it is. So some South Pole coronal holes over here, but they're not super well-defined ones according to that data. That's the past 24 hours from SDO. This data here is part of the National Solar Observatory, part of the GONG-2 data, the Global Oscillation Network. Here is our pausing for station identification. You've reached the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Ooh. Rob is telling us that we've got a sunspot number of about 128. 128 is the sunspot number, according to Rob, the Royal Observatory, Belgium. Here's our flare probability monitor and scoreboard. And let's take a look at sunspots from SDO. There we go. Nice. So, what's going on as far as changes is not much. Not much. Not a lot of changes happening there. Those groups looking pretty steady over the past 24 hours. Although, again, once again, there is a new likely sunspot rising down there in the southeast. Besides that, things pretty quiet. Here's a close-up of sunspot 3590. We'll get a little bit more imagery of that, and keep in mind it remains an X-class flare producing risk for the next like 3 days. So even after it's out of sight, it'll still be capable of producing large solar flares. And actually now its likelihood of producing major proton events is higher than it was when it was facing Earth. So again, likelihood of large solar flares remains very high as it approaches the limb, and likelihood of proton events remains much higher due to its emission into the Parker spiral. I'll just say that. The protons will follow the magnetic field force lines, which come out in a spiral type pattern, and the plasma sort of has its own fields in a way. The plasma has its own magnetic fields. So anyway, before we get to any of that stuff, let's take a look at the proton flux and there we are. The proton flux and the GOES X-ray flux. No spikes in the proton flux, and no major flares over the past 24 hours. But this uptick here is from this new group rising in the southeast. So when that started popping up over the limb, we started seeing it emitting some filaments and so on. So that's what's going on. An increase in the X-ray flux there from that southeastern limb where that new active region has risen. And before we get to star charts, let's get to 131 angstroms. That sounds good. There's another 24-hour video for you. And once again, there's that new active region. You'll see at the end there, you'll see a brightening. That is the increase in X-ray flux that we just showed you. So that does pose some flare risk. We do have some sunspots in the north central portion of the solar disk that are some minor flare risk. And also the major flare risk remains sunspot 3590. So we put out incredibly detailed imagery of sunspot 3590. We even had an X-class flare forecast. We showed the magnetic fields. And then the X flare happened while we produced the video. That was a few days ago. You can check it out. youtube.com/smashomash/video. Some spectacular shorts in there as well. They've gotten pretty popular. So that's the past 24 hours. And before we get to CMEs, here's one more view, the 94 angstroms wavelength. And a star chart is next. So that's what's going on over our heads. If you want to make your own star chart, try skyandtelescope.org. We've got a Jupiter up there, and we've got a Sirius. The brightest star visible over Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. Next, our solar system forecast. It's lonely on this side of the solar system. Check it out, folks. Earth is all alone. All alone right now, folks. And but Mercury is going to be making its way around pretty promptly. It's pretty speedy. Here's your 1-week solar system forecast. And shout out to Chuck Canfield. Happy birthday to Chuck Canfield. Turns out he's only 17 years old because he was really born on February 29th, which means he's only had a certain number of birthdays, folks. So, yep, turns out he's only 17, so that's a good thing. And yeah, good news. And by the way, folks, remember, never try to sneak up on a dragon in its own lair. If you thought you snuck up on the dragon in its own lair, you failed. It tricked you into thinking that you snuck up, but it just let you sneak up on it. Unfortunately, you may have become dragon food, so hopefully not. But in any case, don't try to sneak up on a dragon in its own lair. It will not work. Continuing on to our astronomy photo of the day, and it's some coins. Why? Because leap year. Yeah, the Julian calendar had leap year in it, and that's hardly an astronomy photo. So let's move on to CMEs. And there's George Mason University, and pardon my head is being scrubbed out, and oh my God, I'm becoming part of space. Sorry about that. I don't feel like calibrating this thing again because I'm wearing a shirt that is full of space, folks. It's full of space. So CMEs, and we've got, I think, 2 or possibly even 3 directed toward Earth. So that's pretty cool. We're always in favor of that, and we can expect those to arrive sometime on March 3rd. March 3rd. And into March 4th. So yeah, might be an interesting night. So here are some other coronagraphs here, the Glasgow C3 as well. And let's actually get a little closer. Don't be shy. Get a little closer and soon I'll shout, we're all gonna die. So get in your bunkers and hide from reality. Just kidding, folks. Space weather is really not very spooky. It's not gonna end civilization, so just deal with it. Here we'll also show stereo A and its difference imagery before we show our custom coronagraphs, which are better. But these are pretty good. What do we got? And I don't know. We'll just show our custom coronagraphs and call it a day and not screw around. So there we go. There are some absolutely top-notch 24-hour videos. Soho Lasco C2, the C3, also Mercury making its way across there, and at least 3 CMEs that may have earthly directed components. So I'm counting 1 and then 2. Well, I'm going to say 2. 2 CMEs expected to impact Earth on March 3rd. Here's a little closer view. Once again, we've got SDO 304 angstroms synced up with the coronagraphs. And you can see multiple filamentary eruptions coming from the south central portion of the solar disk. So it looks like one of those 2 is earthly directed, if not both. And then there's another one from the northwest. That one is, I'm less sure on that one. So this one that comes out over here, that one right there, that one is less likely to have earthly directed components, but it absolutely could also. Having a little bit of trouble seeing the origin of that one. So, but I think that came right out of sunspot 3590. So that one might miss Earth, but it looks like we have 2 that are earthly directed. That's my forecast, and I'm sticking to it. That's what I see. That's what I report. I haven't checked anybody's notes or compared anything to anybody. Let us know in the comments what other forecasters and what other, the ones who aren't forecasters, the ones who are forecasters, let us know what they said, what NASA said, NOAA said, Tamitha Skov said. This is called being objective and, whatever. So, looks like 2 CMEs earthly directed. Them's the facts. And let's get to filaments. Facts and filaments. That'll be a good, name for a investigative news show, right? Facts and Filaments, starring me. So, by the way, these filaments have been named. If you weren't aware, yeah, those filaments are named. And if you want to find out what they're named, well, you've got to join us over on Twitter. I don't know. Twitter, x.com/smashomash. Just type in the hashtag name that filament, and you'll find out the names. One of them's named after me. This one right here. And one of them's named after the person that named it after me. That one right there. Hashtag name that filament. Name filaments after your friends, your foes, or even yourself. But it has to be living humans because filaments are lively things. So no fictional movie characters. No, you can't name it after Socrates. This is the past couple of hours from the GOES 18 SUVI. Oh, back to the GOES 16. All right. The GOES 16 SUVI. And let's just take a brief look at this in close-up, shall we? All right, so multiple likely spots for solar flares. This one by far is number one, most likely place for an X-class flare. These other areas, M-class flares, somewhat high likelihood in these areas. Down here, also somewhat likelihood of second-rate solar flares. But sunspot 3590 up there in the northwest, it is very much likely to produce first-rate, as in X-class solar flares. We've also got prominences at both poles, a thing you can expect to see more of for the coming 16 months or so as we creep closer and closer to solar maximum and get more and more exciting space weather. So, that said, let's get to our bonus feature segment and then to meteorology and then get this onto your screen. So here are bonus features. Satellite charging hazards. Satellite charging hazards are non-existent. It's smooth sailing. GOES electron flux is still low. Quite low. Oh, noes, folks, it's a low electron flux. And there's the 1-year graph, and you can see how low it is. Lowest levels in over a year, and an extended electron drought there going all the way back into December. Here you can expect to see even lower levels, or at least NOAA can. I don't know why they're expecting such lower levels, but maybe they see CME impacts headed this way, so that would cause it. So maybe NOAA already agrees with our forecast for a CME impact on March 3rd. Continuing on to our ionosphere stuff. Feel free to pause the video on this frame. And remember, folks, you can zoom in 8 times on the video using your YouTube app. At least my Android OS version of it does. Next, the ionosphere itself. There it is in vibrational frequency, courtesy of Australian Government Bureau of Meteorology. Can I talk like a weirdo for the rest of the video? Would that be okay with you? Because if I start to get bored, I might start to act like a complete ass. Remember, folks, I have a special skill, all right? I have the ability to go from completely serious to completely silly with zero warning. So, but I digress. There's the anomalogram, anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median. And we saw a little bit of action there, but not much. That's why I said a little. And so you can see a bunch of red on there. It almost looks like mild geomagnetic storm conditions happened in the southern hemisphere. So, a little bit of action there on the ionosphere. And let's show the wham before I carelessly whisper into the microphone. Yep, it's the global ionosphere nowcast, all right. It's showing your free electrons and maximum usable radio frequencies for your HF radio transmissions. And yeah, that's what's going on. And we'll close out space weather to see if we see a new umbra there rising in the southeast. You think we'll have one? It's going to be close. And I think I see a sunspot, but just barely. It's looking pretty small, so I'm not going to get too excited about it. It's been a pretty quiet day besides those CMEs, but it's a perfect example of how you can have a quiet day with a quiet day with no letters transpiring in the background. A quiet day with major CMEs, lots of CMEs and no major flares. So remember, folks, they're separate phenomena. Anyway, let's move on to meteorology. Starting out with, check it out, the lowest sustained pressures in the world. The lowest of the lows right there. And of course, you can see that's rotating clockwise, so that tells you something, right? It's in the southern hemisphere, and it's kind of like hurricane level almost there. 951 hectopascals in the Southern Ocean, the world's lowest pressure. Probably also the world's highest seas in there. And what do you got? What do you got? What do you got? What do you got? You've got what? I've been bamboozled. That's it? All right. No big waves, though. All right. That's kind of weird. Why don't they have big waves? So we do have some big waves off of the coast of Ireland. There are the world's stormiest seas, 30-footers. Basically, the oceans are kind of quiet right now, folks. So if quiet oceans freak you out, then definitely get into your bunker. Immediately bunker up, folks. Bunker up. And make sure your bunker's not too deep. I've heard those deep bunkers, those deep underground military bunkers, they're very dangerous, folks. Oh, they're so dangerous. Watch out. Don't have your bunker too deep. Says people who don't understand how bunkers or depth works. Smash staff, make sure your bunker's not too deep. How deep does it have to be? Oh, like 4 inches. What? Yeah. Yes, I've heard some shite about bunkers. And pardon my face melting. I mean, I don't know. I'm becoming part of space. Cosmic rays are tearing me to pieces. So here's meteorology. These are the surface winds of the east. Here are the jet streams of the east. Jet streams of the central world are next. Yada. Surface winds of the central world. Surface winds of the Yada. Jet streams of the Yada. Doubled up over the U.S. Clouds and fog. Look exactly like Yada over the Americas. And by the way, if any of you pricks are anti-dentites, I'm going to find you and I'm going to shame you. Look at the snow forecast for California. It's bonkers! Bonkers! Look at that. 6 feet of snow in the forecast, folks, over the next 3 days. 6 feet. That's the Euro forecast. The GFS forecast, not even forecasting anything. Only 57 inches. So, but the Euro forecasting 6 feet for areas north of Tahoe. And yeah, that's bulky. That's a lot of snow. So there's going to be a lot of people who are snowed in. I'd be prepared for that. Don't be snow jobbed. Look at that. Next 12 hours, next 24 hours, next 3 days are bonkers. GFS model, Euro model, DAG. That's new snow from windy.com. Here's our weather.gov map. Weather.gov, the homepage of the National Weather Service, where to get your weather if your location is lit, like your county or your waterway. Next, some forecast. The GFS pressure and precipitation model for the next 72 hours is next. And look at the darkness of the blue. It's heavy, heavy, heavy. Near spring snow's coming, folks. March is starting off like a lion as far as snowfall. DAG. Oh my God. Okay, next. Accumulated positive snow depth change. And like I said, there are areas getting 6 feet in the forecast. This Tropical Tidbits forecast is only showing like 4 feet. I don't know if it maxes out at 48 inches or what the deal is, but it looks like it's pegged. It's pegged, folks. Son of a bit turn. Let us know in the comments if you know what a bit turn is. And don't look it up. What are you, some kind of a... You want to prove that you know what a bit turn is? Like, that's the dumbest flex ever. If you really know what a bit turn is, let us know in the comments. And I'll tell you something about yourself if you know what a bit turn is. Off the top of your head. If you got to look it up, then who cares? Anyway, here's our temperature anomaly forecast. And we got a bunch of warm weather coming to the east. Yeah, warm weather coming to the east and northern part of the U.S. So bring it on. Bring it on. I was riding in like 30 degrees this morning, so cheers. Anyway, next is our lightning stuff. We got some bands of lightning there in the Atlantic. I don't care, but there it is. And is it continuing on? Oh my God. This could be the kind of place that could produce the perfect storm, where you could witness the drowning of both a Calvin Klein underwear model and the women's choice for Male heartthrob of the year circa 2004. The perfect storm. One man, one hunk, one boring movie that was overrated and had kind of a questionable ending that you may or may not like. Anyway, that's a real-time lightning map from lightningmaps.org, and if you use that next time you hear thunder, I recommend it. If not, I definitely don't care, but it might save your bacon, so you might want to use it. So, cheers. Anyway, we'll close this thing out with the latest of these things. There you go. U.S. Doppler radar for 50 states. U.S. Doppler radar for the lower 48s. The clouds and fog, and the water vapor map, and the recap. And the signing off, I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash a Mash, coming at you from the Smash News Network, the busted name of news. And until next time, may that solar wind be at your back while I go back to the bunker again. Whoa.